All right, so let's call this one to order. Do we have?
Yeah.
The agenda up there? Does everybody have the agenda?
No.
I
think that's anything open. I got it here.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So, let's do the list. We always start.
It's huge. I mean, it's really huge.
Yeah,
It's
not
gonna be
super long.
Okay.
There's a reason for that.
I was in from there.
We're doing it.
Right, I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So when we had met last month, we decided, we had talked about the charge of the committee and how feasibility versus reasonableness and suitability and all the rest, so. I think Shelley, you had mentioned you weren't ready to talk about it last month, which I don't think anybody was, so that's why we kind of set aside this time for that, so. The time's coming, I think we have to have a vote, take the vote for both towns. 180 days is October 11th, is that right, Kevin?
I believe it's controlled.
So. We have to have our vote by that day, or we have to have, if we decide to move forward, the report's done.
So according to RSA, whatever this is, 195.20. I believe we have to, within 180 days after the first committee's meeting, the committee shall report its findings to the state board. But it gets confusing. Is
Yeah,
if the committee finds that withdrawal from one or more towns from the cooperative is recommended, the plan shall be submitted to the state board by no later than November 1st.
Right.
So I'm reading that we had to have a decision by
fine, the
180
11th.
days,
Right.
and then if we, however we decide to go, we then need to put forward that motion we need to put the report to the state by November 1st. I guess if we do not vote to recommend, we just have to report this to the
School board.
school board, although in reading about Dublin. If we decide not to recommend and there was a minority that wants to do a report, they can still present a report to the state board of education. And that report will then be considered as a minority report. And that's what happened with Dublin. The minority report, that minority report was approved. And it went on the ballot in March. So.
Yep.
There
That's my
are
understanding.
other avenues.
Yep. So, so let's just start there and kind of talk about the charge that we have, because we've always kind of gone on the understanding was, is it feasible? But with that statutory change to feasible and suitable. Anybody have any questions about that or want to add anything? Or Kevin, I know you raised it, if you want to.
I did print out the attorney's,
Yeah, I think that's on the drive too.
it is on the drive, but Shelley had asked to be printed out, and so I printed it out. If you want to, it's more than one minute.
Anybody got one more?
Oh, yeah. Oh.
It helped. You look at this thing again. And on a point of order, would it be possible for me to get the Wi-Fi password for this place? So that I could actually see the stuff online?
I knew that's gonna help right now.
I know
I'm
it's
still
not.
spinning, I'm still spinning here. I have the password, I'm still spinning. Go see Brandon.
Yeah, that's IT guy.
I'll go see the icon.
Okay. So go ahead, Kevin, if you want to.
So, no, I just, you can read the letter, the opinion of the, attorney. That, and feasible seems easier to me than suitable.
Sure.
I did do some other research and was reading, minutes from other towns that went through this same process. And they raised some good points, you don't mind sharing. For feasibility, they had 4 points. Does the district have enough tax base to support finances, support a school district? Number 2, do they have a plan that will allow education for all students K through 12 in their school district? Are they able to put together a school board that will govern their school district? And are the number of students sufficient to provide, prove an improved education to their district? And in suitability, are the districts no longer part of the natural, social, and economic region? And will it have a serious economic impact on the towns in that school district?
So that's not from like case law or statute,
No,
that's just what that
That's what that town, you know, talked about it. This,
basically costs. Comes down to
Yeah.
cost.
so
Could the town afford it? Walpole leaves, can they afford it? If Langdon leaves, can they afford it? That one didn't have anything about, did it have anything education wise, like the education would stay the same or better? But it seemed like that would be the other problem for me.
so they allow education for all their students. Okay, through 12. Right.
What's that?
Just says, will they, this feasibility says about, will they allow them to have education for all their students?
Sure. For the education.
So.
Yeah.
So I'll just start, I have a couple of concerns.
Go ahead.
I'm struggling with, mostly in terms of. I thought they were suitability, but according to this previous thing, maybe feasibility, I don't know. So my concern is that all the talk, and even in the report and all the talk just amongst Walpoleans, is that if Walpole left, they would still expect, they're counting on sending their students to Fall Mountain High School, but that's their primary choice, to send them to Fall Mountain High School. And my concern is if Walpole did, and Langdon's the same, I'm trying to say Walpole, but Langdon's the same genre, right? If they did leave the district, they kind of demonstrate they're no longer a viable partner in this enterprise we call high school education. That they are looking out more for themselves than they are for the cooperative as a whole. And so if I was still in the school board, which I'm not going to be in March, if I was still there, there's our next school board member right there. If they were on the school board, if I was still in the school board, I would be seriously looking at restructuring this district to out of concern for the taxpayers of the cooperative. And that we'd have to make some decisions, they'd be very painful decisions about how we would have to restructure this, not just this school, but the whole district to make it viably feasible. Because our tuition contracts are only for a couple of years, right? And if we entered a contract with Walpole at the beginning, there's nothing to say is that when the contract came up, that they'd have to renew. They could pull out at any time. And Langdon to say again, I'm saying Walpole, I mean anytime. So the school board would have to really look at that very deep and self-preservation, because we've seen the numbers. If this one is true, only if Walpole leaves, the numbers really do go up for the remaining towns, if nothing else changed, which means something has to change, because there's no way that poor Charlestown go from $22 to 35, whatever it was. So something has to
That
change.
drastic, so in that drastic increase is Walpole leaves and doesn't tuition back, right?
Right.
And is there anything to say that in the agreement, there isn't an agreement around potential? Because that's not part of the discussion, that it would be a temporary thing to send to tuition the children to Fall Mountain. Walpole, you know, that hasn't been part of the discussion, that it would be a stopgap for Walpole. But that it would be the intention. So I just want to mention the flip side of that is that Walpole is, you know, Walpole stays, so potentially a contract could have a minimum number of years or a minimum number of years of warning prior to. So I just want to say that any terms we can't assume what's agreed on in your example.
Right.
But
And
please continue.
so the school board did vote and created that we are willing to, the school board was willing to enter negotiations. With the understanding that there might be changes and there might not be negotiations necessary because of changes, yeah. But every contract is usually, our tuition agreements right now are only 1-year agreements.
Right,
We've
we're
been-
looking at
We're
changing it
taking
to
a
be
2-year
a
agreements.
2-year. Yeah.
So I don't think I can't speak for the school board because I'm not But I haven't seen any precedent where we enter a multi-year agreement to do that. So it's, and then even if it's just a stopgap, I mean, that still says it's gonna stop, right? Which means that we then have to figure out what we're gonna do to preserve the district and the tax and keep the taxpayers whole at the end of it. So that's, that's my major concern.
Well, and, right, if there was, even if we said that there was going to be a contract, it's only a contract for a period of time. So at some point, there's the very strong possibility that we wouldn't have that anymore, and then it would need to be taken, that those taxes would need to be taken up by the remaining towns.
Or we would be in the unenviable position of having to make a last minute change. Because of the way budget cycles work, we might be in a budget cycle where we were, hang out the nose for a year until we can get it back right sized too. So I think it's one way to say it. My other concern is, for both Walpole and Langdon, is for Walpole, the study says that you would have five school board members. The Walpole School District would have 5 school board members, and the Langdon School Board would have 3 school board members. And my concern is just, we have a hard time finding more than one school board member to run every time. I did look at the Walpole voter results. And like for every open seat, except for the trustees for the library, there's only one person running. And so it's my concern that it just, I don't want to call it voter, I don't call it apathy, I don't know what to call it. But there's just not a lot of civic engagement. And to find those people, so I think that kind of runs into suitability. Can we realistically find 5 people? Right? We have an open seat right now on the school board. We only had one person put their name forward to be on that, to fill in that temporary seat, and that's just till March.
And that was with all of us beating the bushes.
Right?
And I would pose that it would be different if the school board was within the
We can
town.
say that all we want, but we can say that.
It's
But
hard
we
to
have all
fill,
those.
it's hard to fill, it's hard to fill the positions that exist in the towns.
Yes,
It's true.
It's,
For
I
some
mean,
of
it's,
as well.
and Walpole's had 2 resignations in the middle of their terms.
right.
Right.
I mean,
No.
I know that Ackworth, Rob has been trying to get off the planning board for years now. He keeps saying no.
I think Langdon has openings on the planning board. Least, right? There are other openings on other boards in Langdon that we can't fill.
So I think what Carolyn's saying makes sense too, that it's such a completely radical change that you might get people who want to do it.
We do.
We
have
don't know.
people asking.
We don't
know.
It's
We
just
don't know.
Especially
I'm just
in
going
town.
on
the
the
different
history of.
future. No, that's.
Especially in a town like Langdon. The school, as we know, the Sarah School is a hot button issue. You might get people coming out of the woodwork that want to be in charge of that. Once they have control of it. Not
Sure.
just one seat on the school board.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So, and I'm not saying that you get that, it's just, we don't know, we have no idea.
I'm just using, so in business, we say past performance predicts future performance. And past performance says we have hard time finding people to join these
No, I agree with
units,
that.
right? And
The
school
language,
board is a lot of work, right? It's probably second to select board. I think I could never be a select board person. I thank you all who do that. But it's a lot of work, and you make probably the same for select board, you make no one happy. So it's also has very few paybacks.
I second that, and I think people are gonna look at Claremont's situation and think a whole lot of, heck no, I don't wanna be in that spotlight. I think it's gonna be harder to fill those seats.
I also think that we need to think about, in terms of past performance, we had a budget committee in years past. And then we had a budget committee that had nobody on it. Because nobody, at first, there were people there, and then nobody ran. And so it closed. And then it opened again. But then, you know, we're already starting to have to look around for people to run for those positions.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to fill those positions.
I wouldn't want us to get bogged down in this discussion, because I think if Walpole chose to decide to leave, then that really is,
Their problem.
no, yeah, lack of a better word. However, I would like to go back to the discussion, because I do think it's imperative for anybody who's listening or anybody that's sitting on this board to realize that if we restructured the school, which would probably most likely have to happen if Walpole was to leave, I just need to make sure that everybody is aware that nobody can guarantee that there will be enough room for all of Walpole's students. And how would Walpole decide who gets to go to Fall Mountain and who doesn't? I don't know. But, I just can't see Fall Mountain operating at where it is today if Walpole was to leave. I think there would be a significant change, especially to this school, that there is a very good feasibility that we could not take all the students from one town, including Leominster and Unity students, even though they're not a lot, but
And Goshen.
sorry.
I think too, one thing we should consider is, you know, who's gonna make that, who should make that decision? As to how Walpole does it, or should Walpole be concerned they can't get 5 members, or should Langdon be concerned we can't get 3 members? You know, the members on this committee ready to shut the whole thing down based on hypothetical that nobody's gonna do it? Or should we let Langdon decide that? Or Walpole decide that?
That is my concern, is that we not base our decision or collective decision on one hypothetical case. And I'm sorry, Joe, go
Right,
ahead.
that's exactly what I was gonna say. This decision about where Walpole sends their high school kids is entirely up to Walpole should they leave. Same with Langdon, entirely up to Langdon. I read up on the state law when, Unity wanted Fall Mountain to become their anchor, place to send students. And reading the laws through that, I read that, you know, in New Hampshire, if you don't have a high school, you really can send your kids any place in New Hampshire you want, but you need, what it said was you need an anchor. Basically, you don't even have to have an anchor school. All you have to do, all the town of Walpole would have to do is set a number. This is what it would cost to, let's say, to send kids to Fall Mountain, X amount of dollars. And then every family in Walpole would get that amount of money to send their kid to whatever school they wanted to. And if it cost more than what that amount of money is, well, okay, that's on the parents. But, and if it costs less, it's not clear what they do if it costs less. Who gets that money back? But that's something for a lawyer to decide. But I thought that is actually a really good reason not to have if you're small, now your parents the parents of these kids can send them anywhere, you know, if they have the means. But my point of all of this is that I always believe that in this particular case, Walpole needs to make those decisions. It's up to Walpole to find the people to fill the slots, and it's certainly not up to this committee to decide for them. I 100% agree with you that those decisions have to be made by the towns should they decide to leave. What we're talking about here is, do we, is this feasible to do this? And that's what we're here for, is to figure that piece out. And I mean, personally, I think that if people voted in Walpole to leave, people voted in Langdon to leave, I'm willing to let them make that decision and say that, yeah, this is feasible. As far as I'm concerned, come next March, you guys decide if you want to go or stay.
Yeah.
And then what's left of Fall Mountain picks up the pieces and goes from there. And if if they're putting contingency plans in place, fine. And if they're not, fine, deal with it when it happens.
I think part of it too is the feasibility and suitability. We'll decide that, but you have to kind of, I think we need to, and for probably each of us, need to decide how we look at that. So that example you gave, Kevin, was a committee that came up with a punch list of really, not really elements, but some criteria. Is it feasible and suitable to whom? I know in Langdon, I can find for everybody who says we gotta go, there's another person who says we gotta stay. So, should we substitute our judgment for them based on hypotheticals, or do we, I mean, they, in Langdon, it was 69-2 to start this process. So to have just,
Yeah,
what would we need, 6 of us, 5 of us now, say no and just shut it down, which I know we could do the minority report and still move it, but I think one of the things to think about, again, suitable to whom? To us or to the voters who are gonna look at it, and not just Walpole and Langdon, but Charlestown will still vote, Ackworth will, Elsted will, everybody votes on it. So, do you have something, Ryan?
I was thinking to the first comment that if both leave and then chips fall where they may, and whether they stay or don't go, whether it's 1-year term or 3-year terms or 5-year terms, the rest of us will have to reconsider where we fall. And then I think suitable to me means right or appropriate for the particular situation. And I think about Charlestown and Elsted and Ackworth, and to me, that may not be suitable.
So I also feel it, still falls in the suitability because we are looking at educating K through 12 students, right? And we're gonna make sure that they're still gonna have that opportunity. One of my other concerns about like suitability is that when Charlestown brought forward their withdrawal study, their withdrawal committee, they came in with a plan. I think Albert had 3 binders full of a plan. And one of my first questions on this committee that first day was, does Walpole and does Langdon have a plan? And the answer was no. It did not have a plan. And it kind of feels a little bit to me like a Judy Garland, Andy Rooney movie. Like plot, I've got a barn, you got a candle, let's put on a show. It's like, I've got a school, I got some teachers, let's just open a school. And I'm really concerned about that there isn't really, the plan you have is the one I basically wrote, right? It seems.
I don't know if you've read it.
I read it seems pretty close to what I wrote, so, we still haven't seen a budget.
But I think,
We
Kevin,
haven't seen
It has all the information that you need.
We have not seen
to
a budget.
make this. It's basically Walpole had.
you can say you have a budget, I have not seen a budget, I saw already your report.
May I respond? This is what Walpole's proposing. Walpole feels that in the budget that has already been created for next year, we are fully able to meet all of those needs. We continue until the new school board decides not school board, excuse me, we will continue to have to be part of the SAU until the new school board decides not to. If they choose not to, we will still be part of SAU60 and those services that SAU60 provides, because we are part of SAU60, not because they're giving them to us, but because we are part of SAU60, and those are services that we are part of and paying into. So
I don't understand that. I don't
okay,
I'm looking at what I have looked. Took us a while to get there, but
It's the same thing.
I'm seeing methods. You're gonna still continue to follow the methods. In your Walpole budget, you're gonna follow the methods.
within the methods, if you scroll down, I explain what's in each of those with as far as the items that we will be sure that we are providing. I want to acknowledge the methods have the full cost. They have not been taken apart using the formulas that are used for the methods, and that will happen. I just wanted you to have where this is going. Walpole has every confidence between their offices and through the SAU that we will meet these children's needs. It isn't a line by line budget isn't necessarily it is absolutely not needed for this report. I'm not saying we wouldn't do it. I'm not saying I'm not willing to work
So
with people, but it's not, this is not negligent. This is,
Well, I think too, Carol, just,
be negligent, I'm just asking questions.
yeah, I think too, like Albert's binder, that was his way to sell it. So if people go, like if you move it forward and Walpole goes and if the numbers aren't all there, say, we're gonna vote on this in March, but we don't have all the numbers yet. And they still go for it? I mean, is it up to us to say, we're gonna protect the voter of Walpole from
No,
him or
It's
herself?
up to us to say we're gonna protect the students and this district. That's what it's up to us to do. I don't care about the voters. I'm protecting the students of this district,
Well,
and that's what I'm doing.
and I think that for me, I'm looking at the students of I'm not just looking at the students of Walpole or of Langdon. I'm looking at I'm looking at my kids in Ackworth, and I'm looking at the kids of Charlestown, and I'm thinking, how is this going to affect all of us? And so I guess that, I mean, I'm not quite, in here, you say that that the leadership functions will be absorbed by the town Walpole offices as appropriate to the positions through contract agreements for part-time services through SAU60. I'm not sure what that means.
And I don't blame you.
The town of Walpole offices. Who is that? What is that?
so what I was trying to get at without having exactly who falls under that leadership category that is in the budget is what I did gather, I think, is that the leadership has some pieces in it in that budget that would need to be contracted with the SAU for at least initially, certainly for the purposes of this, where what I think was under leadership included, help me, school board, what's included under leadership? It's the curriculum,
The
it's curriculum.
special education director, your curriculum coordinator, your
So-
superintendent, your fiscal manager.
Services.
But there's also, regardless, I don't want to get caught up in those details, so I agree with you. That was a bit of a word salad there that can be edited out to make it cleaner. There are pieces of that may need to be part of the SAU, but within our town offices, we have every intention of growing our business area of it. So the business piece of the school district, of the SAU, potentially some of those functions will become part of the town of Walpole. We're going to have to tease out what will be in our best interest based on what we have available to us, and that's where the contracts come from. When you talk about related services and special education, many of those services are contracted with many different school districts, and it's almost more the norm than it is to employ your own therapists. Other school districts, there are many towns with the same format that Walpole is proposing, including Westmoreland, including Chesterfield. There's several in our area that are the model for us. Essentially, Chesterfield is very similar to Walpole in its makeup and its approach. And so we are using those models as our guide to navigate through this. And those towns do incorporate some town services within there to make the school piece work as is appropriate, such as my example is the business office. So I agree with you. I will edit the clarity on that. That's not clear at all. But that's really the general approach to this, is to look at Westmoreland, to look at Chesterfield. We've spoken to people in those towns to find out more about it, and that was in the potentially some of this comfort that Walpole has is we did the initial suitability study within the town to research if this was even something we wanted to put on our ballot last spring. So we had a team of Walpole residents that went from to talk to different towns, to talk to superintendents, to talk to superintendents that are part-time between multi-districts. We did due diligence for the town with our initial local study. So that may be what's missing in.
But I guess that we never were able to see that.
Let's let Shelley
It's,
go.
it is in the draft.
I want to back up because I don't think Albert just came with a ceremonial packet. And everybody knows that Albert and I were on completely different sides of the fence of that argument. However, I will give credit where credit is due. The man had his ducks lined up. That withdrawal committee from Charlestown, as scary as it was, had their ducks to the point where when they went in front of the Board of Education in Concord, the members of that board were able to look at the members of the Charlestown portion of that and say, your taxes are going to go up by $1 million. Right now for Walpole, I don't know how much their taxes are gonna go up. What I'm being told is Walpole will cover it. Well, what the voters need to know is how much.
Hmm.
And what Walpole will say in response to that is, what's in the budget already will cover what we need. That's our point, and that's why we are using the proposed budget, because the numbers in the budget for Walpole will cover Walpole's independence.
But I don't know where and I trust you. Listen, if you sit here and you vote yes, you want to move forward with it, I'll back that. You know what? If Walpole wants to leave, that's on them. I'm not gonna stand in their way. When it was in this arena, nobody stood in Charlestown's way. And if Charlestown, it was deemed feasible for 46% of this district to walk away in this section of the committee, then it absolutely has to be feasible for 24% to leave. So that's where I stand on that. What I'm saying is, and my concern is that when you go before the voters, your numbers are not going to be true numbers. To sit here and say, what's in the budget right now that Walpole is paying is going to cover the expenses if they go alone. I find that really, really hard to believe. Really hard. You have Charlestown who's covering 46%. You have Ackworth and Elstead and Langdon that are all bringing to the pot as well. There's not a single school that can leave this district and use the numbers that are in this budget and say, we got everything covered.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be hypercritical. I thought you and I had a really great conversation.
That's good.
And you just heard me say, I'll support you. If you as the rep says yes,
I hear you.
I support you. My concern, and my concern during the Charlestown withdrawal, was, are those numbers accurate?
Okay.
And can the voters for any of the towns handle the tax rate change for any of us to leave?
Okay.
So that's where I stand on that, but
I think, Shelley, I agree with that, but I still think that it's up to Walpole to hear, he should hear that explanation and say, because I think that's what happened in Charlestown. I remember the lead up, I had just been on the select board, but the lead up to it was Charlestown was gonna get out and it was gonna be great and they were gonna run their own thing. I think they recently left mutual aid. They were gonna kind of isolate. And then when they got the numbers, people in Charlestown said that your taxes are gonna go up. They said, that's not gonna work for us. That's what the people of Walpole or Langdon need to hear. When we did a few weeks ago, wasn't really a public hearing, but our spiel that Kevin put on, they got real quiet when Kevin told everybody, you might in Langdon might not be coming back. Might not be up to you, Langdon voters to come to Fall Mountain, and that's what they need to hear. People need to have the information. But I still think they need to make the decision to say, that's kind of my thought. And looking at the numbers that you would put together, Kevin, I mean, if we were to leave on our own, Langdon, it doesn't change our taxes wildly so much that like our town's gonna be, our voters would be, our taxpayers would be bankrupt from it. whether we kept the school open or we closed Sarah Porter, but they need to have that. I think they need to have that, and just the kind of, again, 69-2 is not a lot in every other town, but in Langdon, that's a lot of people showing up for town meeting and actually voting, so. There was a direct sort of mandate. We wanna have some say in this, because it's been too long where Sarah Porter specifically in Langdon's been on the chopping block, then it's not, we're gonna close it, then we're not. And some people want it open, some don't. This is a way to let Langdon say, you can have control. And you
Well,
might
they
pay
have,
more.
Langdon has control whether they close their school or not, and that was changed
They,
with the Articles of Agreement.
they do,
So
but it's
the
not,
school board, it's not up to the Fall Mountain School Board.
I
to
understand
initiate
that,
that.
however. Not this past summer, but the summer before, it was attempted to close that school with no vote of the town, 2 weeks before school started. Yeah, that's what was said, but nobody believed it.
Well,
But the Articles of Agreement,
So,
the Articles of Agreement have been changed.
but it's
to
not just,
ensure that the school cannot bulldoze anyone's school in their.
but it's not just, I mean, that's kind of the hot button issue, but it's a lot of other just control things. I mean, I think that's what drove Charlestown when they wanted to do it. It's what's driving Walpole now. It's every year the taxes go up, and when you go to a deliberative session, you watch Langdon put our 5 cards out. We have no control. Now, I'm not advocating that Langdon leave, don't misunderstand. Just that the people in Langdon need to have a chance to actually weigh in on it.
not saying they don't, but I also, I need to correct something. There were 2 different versions of that budget if we kept Sarah Porter open, because we do have a lot of services that need to be added.
Yeah.
The taxes would go up substantially.
Yep,
They would go up. Probably, even if we kept Sarah Porter, we closed Sarah Porter, they would go up. And we are at the mercy of whoever we send, because we're tuitioning 100% of our students. We're at the mercy of whoever we send them to,
right.
on what they charge us to send.
And that's one of those things that people need to hear, because there's a lot of misconceptions. We leave our taxes are gonna go way down. Maybe not, probably not.
If I can just, I am I'm the student services coordinator for Goshen. And Goshen is,
Yeah, we use Goshen, right?
right, you use Goshen,
Yeah.
that's why, that's how we got access to our
Yeah.
budget. But, so from direct experience, I know that, that we are, it can be very difficult.
Mhm.
Because we need to figure out where our kids are going all the time. And we need to, I work with 5 different districts for where my kids go to school. And, there's a lot that has to do with that. And Goshen has a school district business administrator. Part-time, but a school district business administrator. We have a part-time superintendent, we have a part-time student services coordinator. We don't, work with anybody else we're our own SAU.
Yep,
And we're
sure.
we're not a district within an SAU. But those are. It's a lot of work. I work, many hours to be able to do that, and so, I think that, and I've talked with, this summer when I was at my, my conference for the New Hampshire Special Education, Administrators Conference. I was talking with other districts, there have been a plethora of districts that have split away, in New Hampshire recently, which is interesting because there's also a push to consolidate, so it seems like it's kind of both things happening at the
Yep.
same time, which just seems really weird to me, but that's a whole other story. But one of the things that I got from, because I kind of wanted to get a feeling from people from districts who had actually split and what was happening and how was it going. And one of the things from those administrators who were trying to do those districts, was that, that all of the implications you can't find all the implications.
Right.
When we're doing this, you can't find all the implications.
with that
You don't know
100%.
what it's gonna be until you're actually experiencing it. You know, just like anything else in life, you know, I don't know what it's gonna be like to, you know, what, if I have a new dog come into my kennel, I don't know what that dog's gonna be like until it's actually there.
It
you
doesn't
know?
stop you from doing it though.
But it doesn't stop me from, well, sometimes it does.
Yeah.
If I assess.
If you have more information.
I assess them as they're coming in and I say, yeah, no, because we have to make. We can't make decisions just based on, I don't like this anymore, so I'm not gonna do it.
Right.
I mean, we can't do
I
that. That's
agree,
not, I mean, we teach our kids not to do that, you know? You make conscious decisions so that you're not just doing it from a feel-good gut reaction, okay?
Yep.
Because the candy might taste good now, but it's not gonna taste good later, okay? And so, one of the things that I got from them was that many times in numerous folks that I spoke with, one of the things that people had not considered was that there are costs that you don't expect. Things like, yes, you may get to keep the computer program, but you don't get to have access to that computer program until you buy the license
Yeah.
for yourself. Because that license has to, that license was bought by the SAU. It was not bought by that specific place. And so, now you have to buy that license yourself. Access to the curriculum. If you're buying a canned curriculum, you know, a package of, I hate using that word curriculum, because that is not the curriculum, but if you buy into
Mistress mathematics or something.
right, thank you. You don't get to use that until you buy your own license to it. And so, and it is against the law to just photocopy the stuff and use it anyway. That's against the law. So, which was one of the things it seemed like Claremont had been thinking about doing, but they, you know, they realized, oh, we can't do that. So, I think that and that's one. Do we need to have a line by line budget? No, but we need to seriously consider all the pieces of the budget, you know? And, I'm very concerned that we're not there. We in our Walpole committee have not been able to look at the budget. And so I'm very concerned about that. And that we're coming down to when we have to be ready to move forward, and that's my concern.
Thank you. And I want to acknowledge, I hear what you're saying, Shelley, you said it very well when you were saying that people will need and want more detail than is being supplied thus far. And I and people that are able to help me with that piece, we will continue to add more detail and narrow things down rather than the broad strokes that I provided in the numbers tonight. As a draft, it's not presented as the final, but as a draft. I do want to emphasize there are pieces we don't necessarily need to dig for in specifics, because we will still, you know, if it goes to vote and if Walpole is allowed to separate, we will still be part of the SAU. So items that are owned by the SAU are also owned by Walpole, as they are Langdon and as they are Ackworth and Charlestown, and we're part of the SAU, and we will continue to be part of the SAU.
I don't think you're part of cooperative. So all those assets are assets of the cooperative. You are going to be creating your own school district, part of the SAU, which I'm not a lawyer, but I do question. Does A equal B and B equal C? I don't think the transitive property really does fall into the work this time. I think that is a little bit different than that.
I think it is.
I don't think that there won't be a cost for Walpole. I'm not saying that it is supplied free to Walpole, and it's not supplied free to Walpole right now either, or any of us. What I'm saying is there's going to be a cost, but we will not be starting entirely fresh as of a yay vote and we're able to withdraw. It is not going to be from the ground up because Walpole will continue to be part of the SAU and we'll need to work with the SAU and continue. And there are some services that fall under the SAU and not under the school board and the school district. They're two different things.
Can I just, I think that is a point, that's a point right there that we really need to get input from the lawyer on in terms of where those things would be, because I think that in order for the Walpole citizens or the Langdon citizens to make a good decision, they need to have all the facts, okay? And so if you go into it thinking that you're not going to need to purchase your own, what's the word I'm looking for, your access rights to, access rights, I don't know, access rights to licenses, thank you. Sorry, my brain doesn't work real well, but,
I have the same problem.
then, if you go into it thinking that you're not gonna need to purchase those licenses because they're owned by the SAU, and so therefore you'll fall under those licenses, which is, I think, what I'm hearing you say.
I'm not
Then,
speaking to licenses specifically, but speaking to SAU pieces, but please continue.
okay, but they're really expensive. So I think we do need to think about that. And what specifically, what is the SAU what are you gonna keep of the SAU? And I know that you've somewhat outlined it. But I think that needs to be, that needs to be very clear. You know, you're going to, I've heard mixed answers in terms of whether you'll have access to Xandra. So, and in your draft, you're saying you're gonna have access to Xandra. Well, y'all need to know whether you're gonna have access to Xandra or not, you know?
And being
Because-
special education is part of the SAU versus part of the school districts. That's
Right.
the piece of
Right.
that
So-
assumption is that we're
Right.
part of the SAU.
Right, so I think that as far as I've understood it, what the SAU is thinking you're going to have access to is part of the superintendent's time and
HR,
HR
business office.
and business office.
And the tech,
Okay.
head of tech is what,
Head of tech, but not the actual tech people.
Right, we would have to hire a tech person for one.
So I did hear specifically that it did not include special ed.
Okay.
So I think that needs to be clarified because,
We can change it in the report too, to
Well,
say, part-time such as Hinsdale and Winchester have gone it on their own separately and they share a superintendent. So we can explore that more. I know that Chesterfield and Westmoreland have different ways. Westmoreland is smaller than Walpole, but Chesterfield's pretty comparable. They do buy services, including tech from the SAU and have a yearly bill. That's how SAU29 handles all of their different towns. But that, I hear what you're saying and ironing out what needs to be provided to us or accessible. Obviously, we continue to pay as as we pay now for SAU, but that's a good point. And I will make sure that.
yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm saying that this is what I thought that's what our committee was supposed to do, was work together. So, and we kind of just talk about what are we gonna do, but we don't really get down to saying, that we're doing it.
Who's
So,
doing what?
yeah, so I feel like we've spent a lot of time spinning our wheels and not moving forward.
Well, and I do think that Carolyn has been receiving help from members of the Walpole community, which I think is, I don't have an issue with it. Like, she's got to get the report done. if we're spinning our wheels in a committee and then we're looking at her to submit something, and she doesn't feel like she can fall back on anybody, I get where she's going with. However, I do think some of that information that she's receiving is biased. And I do think that it's not necessarily correct information, so, that's. But I also, like I said, I also don't blame her for doing that. She felt, and I think sometimes she feels very alone in this on her own. And like I said, I don't know why we spin our wheels in the committees. I don't know why we do that, but we have done that, and we almost have 1 month to come up with an answer. I mean, quite honestly, given what we have right now, and with Langdon already presenting to their town or the small representation that came to that meeting, I'm fine with taking a vote today. I don't see anything occurring in which in a month from now, I'm gonna feel any differently. If Walpole wants to create the numbers they want to create and go before the state of New Hampshire Board of Education and present those numbers, then that is on them.
However,
I prefer to wait until more time for Walpole to get themselves organized.
we can still vote on whether it's reasonable. We can still do that. We would still have to have the report, and we'd still vote on that report. I would have trouble right now, the way this budget's laid out, putting I've been swayed during the meeting. I'll probably vote for reasonableness. I would have a hard time voting for this report that it stands. I'm afraid that it's too rosy of a picture. And we tried when we did the Langdon one to create like, not the worst case scenario, but a realistic plus.
Was conservative.
Very conservative, to really give the voters there's no surprises, because that's the last thing you want, is a surprise on the other end. So like things I think, I don't know if you've got in here, like, we in our budget put in adding to the capital reserve, because now that's your own thing, right? Is that in your budget?
Well, what I'm waiting for is a number for what we have in the account right now to be able to work from that. But I want to acknowledge that this is a draft, but also I'm hearing what you're saying is needing more hard numbers versus breaking out an existing budget. So
I think it just needs, it's a confidence level. I think it's what I'm missing right now is a confidence level. Having these broad categories doesn't give me confidence that whoever worked on this budget, which I don't even know who that is, which that concerns me too. Thought about all of the things that go into a school board budget in fall math. Because I know Cheryl is a BA, but she's not, we're a very different. You can say no, but we are a very different animal than, she's at Chichester, where is she?
she's in Winchester.
Winchester, yeah. So it's a different, and some of the rules are the same, but we are a very different animal than that district. And there might be things that we know that we don't, that she doesn't know. So I'm very concerned that no one, and I know that she volunteered to be helpful with the budget and, so I'm concerned. That just concerns me. Special education reserve fund, that, you have to add, you're gonna want to add to that every year as well.
Absolutely.
Right? There is some real, I still don't have I put in a request for information about the special education reserve fund. Because it is so tied down because of the way the trust fund was set up. I really don't know any of the details, but the way it's set up, it's really hard to get money out of that thing. So there may not be, that trust fund may not be split up in towns, just because of the way it's created. You're a lawyer.
You look at it.
Yeah, you think, you go. I'm concerned about so some of the special education costs. I'd like to know more about those because right now. You know. Langdon doesn't have any students in out of district placements, but we still pay a percentage. To offset that, it's like an insurance policy, basically what it is, right? It's we pay part of that. And so there would be, even, I don't think you take that budget and say, yeah, that's the cost for special education for high school. Because it's gotta be a lot different when you don't have the district around to absorb some of those costs. We share those costs in the classroom, we share those costs in special, and I'm just really concerned.
So what has been done to the fullest extent from my standpoint, keeping things, keeping information private and the necessity, as we know, about special education and numbers and when we're in small towns, I do know that we have clear information as to what's happening and what the costs are and why, and the basics of why they are what they are, and our numbers, the number of teachers, what their salaries are. We have those pieces of information in a pretty solid way, having Karen and I met with Xandra. I believe Karen did twice. I met with Xandra. We've had emails to clarify. We have a really good handle on the special education piece of it, and I need to reflect that better in the report without, you know, I need to tread very delicately to make sure that I don't reflect something that I don't know, or, you know, in some way share more than would be appropriate.
So now I'm confused because you said this budget is basically the budget from the 2025, 26 budget,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
But you have other information that's not in here? I'm confused.
Not outlined in detail. I followed this pattern as the first start of the budget process, knowing that this meeting would reveal that there were more details that are needed. Well, I know I shared it with my group. I don't know that I shared it with the larger group, but I have a worksheet that I put together after Karen and I met that has all of the, you know, the bigger details, number of teachers, kind of total placement costs of students that we have that are out of district. All of that is very clear to us. And so putting in a more detailed budget in general, that will come more clear.
That's not my question. My confusion is, and maybe I misheard. You said that the budget that we're seeing in this report was basically the 2025-2026 budget taken off of the appropriation sheet,
Mhm.
correct? Is that what that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Okay,
Yeah.
so we're communicating, good. And you are confident that even after your analysis, there's no change needed to those numbers
No,
in terms of special education?
I'm confident that there's no change between when we spoke with Xandra and now. Is that what you mean? There's no change, or
No,
I'm confident
no.
there won't be a change
In the
in
back-
2 years?
I'm looking at numbers.
It
I'll look
says,
at the
it
numbers. So
says
the numbers that you have listed here,
556.
right, the 2 million, whatever that is, right? That, you're confident that that number that was budgeted for Walpole in the 2025-2026 budget as part of a co-op is the same number that will be the budget number for Walpole if they leave.
I feel like I've acknowledged that that isn't what these numbers reflect, that it isn't exactly, that I took it from that. What I want to say again is that those numbers that you're seeing have not been parsed out for the the formula that goes with each one of those methods. So,
You're not gonna need methods because you're not part of the cooperative. So what you need are numbers that reflect the true cost to Walpole voters if they leave.
so
So-
what I want you to hear though, is that we are looking at the budget, the amount of money that's going into the school district. I'm acknowledging we are not giving details of the actual costs. But the amount of money that's going to the school district in the authentic numbers that are budgeted, and the supposition is, and having gone through meeting with other towns that are similar to Walpole, I realize I'm a broken record on that, that those numbers will cover our ability to meet the students' needs pre-K to 12. The suggestions here, the ideas here of how we're going to handle it are put into it, and maybe some of them need to change. I'm acknowledging the SAU piece. We can look into how many pieces the SAU is willing to share, but if we're part of an SAU, we're part of an SAU, so I'm not sure that that's it probably, it's listed somewhere what we would have access to. I'm acknowledging that, but I feel like you and I are talking about two different things
So
because I'm acknowledging.
For me, I'm still starting. So I think I heard you. What you're saying is that there's going to be minimal increase to Walpole's budget to go out on their own from pre-K to 12
Mhm.
as to what you're paying now? Is
Mhm.
that what you're saying? There's gonna be minimal increase?
Mhm. And the reason why, in part, what I say is if you look at Chesterfield, they're educating per student, like $1,000 less per student a year at least.
So
They are part of SAU 29 and they do purchase IT, they do purchase items from their SAU outside of what they need for their elementary school building.
So, and I think that's great that you went to another district. I just want you to know, when Charlestown was going to withdraw from this district, it was going to be a $1 million+ increase to their budget. So for another town to leave and say there'll be minimal increase, there is something in that budget that's not being added in.
Okay.
And I understand that you have a past BA from the district in Walpole that might be assisting. You have a current BA, and I understand you've been talking to Chesterfield. But there's something in our budget, in the Fall Mountain budget, that has not been, that's not, and I don't know if the subcommittee wants to work with Carolyn on this a little bit, but I think something needs to be teased out, because that is my fear, that the Walpole voters are going to get numbers that are assuming it's only a minimal increase to go out on their own. And when you guys actually go out on your own, it's gonna be close to $1 million increase.
Okay.
I'm just,
I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you.
And I was on the Charlestown withdrawal. You know, I was part of Fall Mountain when Charlestown was withdrawing. The bulk of that $1 million that was going to increase was mostly a one-time charge, because Charlestown was going to be forced to buy all of these software packages that you have to use for the state. And there's a big upfront cost. At first, you know, when you buy them, you have to pay full price. And then what you get after you buy them is you get yearly updates, which don't cost anywhere near as much. You know, if you've already bought the program that allows you to communicate with the state about blah, you know, once there's an upfront cost to have to buy that. And you, as stepping away from Fall Mountain, you're no longer covered, because Fall Mountain has paid that price back, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. Who knows how long they've had that same software. But I mean, those startup costs were a big part of the extra $1 million. And we tried to explain it to Charlestown as best we could. These are a one-time charge. This is what you get stuck with your first year. Your second year, it's not so bad, because you don't have all those costs anymore. Now you can get back to doing what Chesterfield does or whatever. All I'm saying is that part of that $1 million was the startup cost to buy all these new software packages that Fall Mountain already had, but we're not gonna give you our license to them. You know, that was the thing. And that was part of the big things that we have to look into. And a lot of, there are a lot of software packages out there that the state demands you have to use this one. Or you have to use that one, you know, because that's how you communicate with the state.
And
So we
just,
need.
I'm sorry, Carolyn.
No, you're.
And just being part of the SAU doesn't give you access to those licenses.
Yeah, that's what
So-
we found out.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back to LEAP and you can hit me later and that's fine.
I won't. We're good. We're good.
But we've gone back on LEAP, right? Because it's stationed in Walpole.
Mhm.
So there's this, and I would think the same thing for any program that was stationed at the Charlestown Middle School, but it's a district program. When Charlestown was thinking of withdrawing, I automatically would think, all right, that's gonna belong in Charlestown, but it doesn't. It belongs to Fall Mountain. So you can recreate the LEAP program, but you're gonna have to buy that whole package, that whole learning thing. So that's kind of what I kept saying to you, LEAP, and I know you're getting it now, that's why I didn't wanna, it's a good example, right? It's a program that ultimately belongs to Fall Mountain, so when Walpole leaves, that will slide over. But you, as Walpole, if you decide to, you'll just have to regenerate that, and it could be a couple $100,000, I don't know how much a
Mhm.
LEAP program is.
Mhm.
Or you could buy a different one based off from the needs of your own students in Walpole and what you wanna do, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a great time to, if like, there's a problem, I don't know if there are any problems with the software, but that would be a perfect time to say, okay, let's use somebody else. You know, whether you use iReady or whatever, but I mean, those are the decisions that you make when you get out on your own. All I'm saying is that there were costs that they hadn't thought of that were like, these are startup costs, you have to
Hmm.
pay these things up front, and then you get the yearly, okay, you're a customer now, you get the yearly updates.
So we'll tease out what's mandated,
Right.
what's,
Right, what does the state
effective,
make sure
what-
that you have to have
Yeah.
and things like that. It's a cumbersome process, but you have to go through it once.
Just make sure the voters know an approximation of what their first or second year may be on those increases, cause
Mhm.
there'll be one, maybe
Yeah.
2 years. Where you're kind of rebuilding your own little system, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, well, we may pay our teachers a little bit more or this or that.
Yeah.
But it will eventually go down, and if, as Walpole, you decide to close North Charlestown, then you have even, or North
I know
North
what you meant.
Walpole,
Yeah, I knew it.
which is, I won't go into it,
You
I
can
think
close
it's one
North
of
Charlestown.
the best schools in the district, by the way, cause I was one of those Charlestown kids that went there. But if you were to decide as a town, as a community to close that, then you're looking at even more savings.
Mhm.
You know, so you may have an increase, but then you could also say, but here's some steps that we could take to mitigate those first couple years of increased costs.
Yeah, and some of it you might be able to defer to the second year. You know, because that always makes it look better for the taxpayers if it's doing this as opposed to bing, bing. You know, I mean, it's like, it's better. There's probably some things that you can get in there that we don't really need to buy that the first year. We can buy it the second year when they kick us out of the SAU or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
So can I just propose, just for the sake of the larger meeting? Walpole's brainstorming right now, and I'm wondering if we should put on hold our brainstorming and have another discussion amongst us for, to tease out these details. And I don't know how everyone feels. I'm happy to keep talking, but I know that this is a meeting for the larger group.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Subcommittee?
Yeah, that we would all talk, have a meeting separately.
You're talking about the Walpole subcommittee?
Yes, like in the near future.
So I've been listening and. I mean, I'm on the fence, I agree with a lot of what has been said tonight. Whereas it's up to the Walpole voters. But we, like has been said, we also have to think about how is that impacting all of the students in our district? For all the towns, what's the impact? I think there's a lot of assumptions being made. But I can't look at this report and say that this is presentable to Walpole voters. To say, this is what, how it's gonna impact these kiddos.
Can I just, if I look at the first paragraph of what, this guy handed out to all of us.
The attorney wrote.
But the attorney wrote, the job of the committee, which the vote was to form this committee, is to prepare a report to the school board indicating whether the withdrawal of one or more of the towns of the cooperative district is one, recommended, two, not recommended, or three, whether more time and information are needed to make a determination. So do we need more time?
No. No, I think if we do right by Carolyn and we have some, the Walpole committee does a couple more subcommittees. And we make a commitment to come in and really try to help her out as much as possible, bring in some numbers, ask some questions, whatever she needs. And we do that, I think we can get a little bit further closer to October 11. Do you?
Yeah.
And I would make, and I'm asking that if there are people who are assisting in Walpole, that they get invited to the subcommittee as well, because it's not going to do us any good to have kind of a group here and a group here trying to work on it, and you're stuck in the middle. Because then, yeah, that's not good mental health.
I also
So-
want to point out that the October date is to say whether we think it is, to make that recommended or not recommended. And then November 1st is when we have to have the report done by.
Right.
So what?
That's how I read it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I.
So we don't have to have the report done by the time that we say if it's recommended or not recommended. We have to have an idea of whether we think that we're recommending that it move forward or not. And I had the same problem when I was on the Charlestown withdrawal group. That I felt that I had to be thinking of the feasibility and whatever. Suitability for not just Charlestown, but the entire district. And I voted no then. I know Joe and I had differences of opinion.
Yeah, we were in violent agreement at the, because I voted yes, only because I always felt that it's a big decision. The Charlestown voters have to be able to make this decision themselves.
But
My line was, I'd love Charlestown to stay, but it's their decision, not mine, not this committee. And that's when Billy Stahl, who used to be on the board, said,
you weren't.
but
I'm
it's
sorry.
legal. And I'm like, doesn't make it right. And I mean, to me, it was like, that's a big decision. They pay a lot of money in taxes. They have a right to be heard.
Right.
I'm finished.
No, it's okay.
But I'd like to hear what you have to say. I really-
You weren't done, Karen?
No.
You were done. Go ahead. No, keep
I was
going.
interrupted.
I'm sorry.
And we're gonna,
I
let
raised
it
my
go.
hand.
That's fine.
I
You
raised my
haven't- you
hand
haven't
and
talked
told
that
me to
much.
go.
I know, because I've been listening.
we're going to Nancy next.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I feel strongly that. Yes, we can all sit here and say, yeah, this is feasible. Walpole is saying they can get behind the numbers but from what I'm hearing, we don't even have all the numbers. We don't even have all the information that we need for Walpole voters to make a informed decision. And I think that we will fall short if we don't give them that, if we don't give them all the information that help them make that decision. So I feel that suitability, no, I'm in disagreement. I don't think it's suitable. I don't think we're looking at the big picture of what the impact is going to be on all the children that are currently in the district, that we owe, like Kevin was saying, we owe this. This is on the adults to make the right decisions.
I
So
second
I
that.
feel like this really falls short of where we need to be. I can't vote on this. And
What I would say to that, Karen, is I don't think we need a line item budget for Walpole. If that, let's say nothing else happened and it moved forward. The argument from somebody who would agree with you would say, we can't vote to leave the district because we don't have real numbers. But I think you can determine suitability. Can Walpole foot the bill?
feasibility.
Can Walpole foot the bill? If they left and their taxes got jacked $2 million, would you be able to foot the bill? Probably, it'd be tough, obviously, be tough for anybody. We know what the impact would be on the other towns, right? Kevin's given us tax ramifications of that and what might need to happen. Regardless of what Walpole has for a budget or what it proposes for its own K through 12.
What I
Doesn't
heard
matter.
tonight is there's a lot of unknowns that haven't even been considered, haven't even been explored, that are not even included in this thought process. So how can we go to the Walpole voters and say, yeah, here we go, let's do this, you know? We're not doing our job.
Yeah,
Is what
so,
I'm saying.
and I think again, this isn't supposed to be what the final version of what the Walpole voters see. There's gonna be a lot of discussion between now and March. February, February, we get the deliberative session, gonna be a lot of talk about it there. Then you got town
November.
meetings and then you got voting. So there's, regardless of what this says, like nobody's gonna, it's not gonna be a, here's the budget, yes or no. You're gonna still have a lot of people saying, that's not the right number, that should be more, that should be less, or we can do it for less. It's gonna get picked apart. But that's where they need to decide.
But there's fundamental things that has been brought up tonight
Sure.
that haven't even been
Yeah.
thought about. That's my concern. And I feel like we have a lot more work to do, and I think, I agree, I think we need to have more meetings working meetings, like we have, put together a shell, and then we have to put the numbers in to be able to say, like Charlestown did, they were able to go, it came out, I don't know how, if it was in the budget, somebody actually put the actual numbers together to say, this is gonna cost you an additional $1 million. We don't have that information today for Walpole, right? Does Langdon?
I think we have a
Langdon
good
does.
idea in Langdon,
Yeah.
it's a little smaller.
But anyway,
So-
that's what I'm saying is, if I were a Walpole voter, I'd have a hell of a lot of questions to say, how is this gonna impact us and the kids?
Similar concerns about the report, but from maybe a different vantage point that. At the end of this thing, we have to vote and put our name on something.
Mhm.
And although I'm leaning towards feasible, or recommend, for the recommend part. I have a really hard time putting my name on this report as it stands. Because I don't have confidence that it is a true picture. But I don't want to be in the minority because it could put me in a very odd position because I don't want to be in the minority because I don't like the report. I don't want to be in the minority because I don't like the fact, I don't think it's a plausible plan, right? So so I would be in a very hard place right now if I had to put my name on this report. I'd have to say, no, I can't do that.
Right.
But I'm not really in the minority of like when Charlestown left and there were people saying, hell no, Charlestown shouldn't leave. That's not the camp I'm in. I just can't put my name and my reputation on that report.
If you, in full transparency, if you asked me to vote on Walpole's decision tonight, I would vote no based on the discussions we've had tonight and the previous meetings we've had, based on the minutes I have read, and there hasn't been very many of them. I wouldn't support it. I wouldn't feel in good conscience for my town and for Charlestown, based on any of the information that I've had. I wouldn't feel it's suitable.
Okay.
So if you wanted to vote yes, I would feel there needed to be a lot more work done.
Nancy?
I agree. About the,
I thought you was done
Yeah,
I
hold on.
agree. And I'm like, which part of the table do you agree with?
Give her a blank
it was
check.
Karen and Kevin, and thinking about the overall way it would affect everyone, and which I probably didn't when I voted in Charleston. But listening, I think we do have to consider everybody.
And let's just be mindful. Mainly to Carolyn, even if this committee was to vote no, doesn't mean Walpole can't move forward.
Right.
So, there is that, and I just wanna make sure that. That that it's not like. Walpole couldn't move forward and still put it on the ballot and still move forward.
I was very upset with the Charlestown withdrawal, anybody who walked in my shoes at that time. I also know that it was majority of Walpole people that got Charlestown to think about it. I don't think Charlestown is going to get Walpole people to think about it. I think Charlestown's in the boat with a lot of other towns, and that is, if you guys want to leave, then go ahead and leave. My concern is, once you do this, there is no coming back. And if something were to happen, if you were to get an increase of special ed kids, if something happened with the adequacy aid, any little thing happened, then you're our neighbors and we can't help you. Because then we have to worry about Langdon, Vilas, Ackworth, and Charlestown, no matter how we feel about you. And there are Charlestown people all across this district. We are intertwined with families, relatives, friends. And if something like, I mean, I'm not even proposing that anything like what's going on above us happens in Walpole. But if something were to happen, we can't help you. And what's even worse is we can't help your students. And that will devastate all of us as a community. So, as I said earlier, most like, I don't know, because then now I got people making me think, but most likely I'll support whatever you decide to do. But I'm scared. I'm scared for your students, and I'm scared for our students that are left behind. Because I don't really think that it's as easy as just saying, we can take care of our own. We really depend on one another so much more than what that budget actually really kind of states. And I know Walpole's in a really great place right now financially, but that doesn't mean that something isn't gonna happen. I'm not trying to make you afraid of withdrawing.
No.
I just want you to think about it,
I'm listening, yeah.
because I'm just scared for all of us. And what happens? I mean, maybe you go out there and everybody will tuition to Walpole, I don't know. I'm just kidding.
So October 11th is a Saturday, so when do we meet again as a whole group?
Well, the question would be, if, it sounds like what we're hearing is nobody wants to take a vote tonight until this is.
I think we need to meet at least one more time.
Okay, so I think we should try to get, a full committee meeting on. I don't know if we want it before the end of September.
29th,
I don't think we wanna go right up until the 11th. So,
29th?
When's our school board meeting, Karen? You've got a calendar.
Yeah.
do you wanna do it that today?
Yeah.
I'd rather do it the 22nd, just because we have select board that night. I like to do these on the same night.
So we can't, I don't care.
We have a long- we have a long school board meeting pretty sure about a long school board meeting that night.
We're only having one meeting a month, so that sucker is gonna be full.
So it doesn't have to be a Monday. I mean, we could pick a different day. How about,
Don't start.
I think Monday.
Carolyn found out how hard that was.
yeah,
You keep it on a Monday.
so we can throw it 29th.
I tried to have 2 meetings.
I can do the 24th. That, if the 22nd works.
But I think the 22nd's out.
Oh,
22nd's out for the school board. So, do you wanna say the 29th then? Is that okay?
so
Yeah.
5:30.
My free Mondays, that's fine. We could do the 6th too. I mean, well, that's the week before. I mean, is everybody okay with that?
Could we do the 6th, and that gives Carolyn and
Yeah.
us a little bit more flexibility with time?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, is we'll have a meeting, kind of figure out who we're asking what and who can help out by taking on getting the numbers, and then they'll get incorporated. So if we have some time to meet before that, maybe
Yeah, that's a good point. You guys are gonna need.
if we're gonna do Mondays, if we could do the 15th for the subcommittee, since we're all sitting here.
We can do the 15th, and if we need the 29th, we have
And
it.
then if we have the, that would be good, because then we have 2 Mondays before,
Oh, I'm gonna be so happy by the 29th because that means every Monday this month I've had. a
That's
meeting.
right.
I can't do the 15th. I can
I'm
do
at
the
the Cape on
29th.
the 15th. I can probably, if it's at this time, I can probably convince my wife that if I bring my laptop, that I could go sit in a corner and do this, but if it's during the day, no way. But, I think I could pull it off on the 15th, but I'll be remote. I don't know if.
I don't think we can we do
I mean, I
remote
can-
with,
Well,
because
we
we
can
have to do remote
Call
for
up somebody on
everybody.
the
Well,
phone.
you could come in on the phone, or we could,
Yeah.
we could,
Just do it soon.
we could,
Can you do
we
that?
could zoom you into it.
Yeah, I mean.
I think if we Zoom, we have to make the link available.
We can
to
do
the
it, we can do
public.
it by audio.
Yeah,
We
well,
can
yeah.
do it on by audio.
Yes.
But I'm not driving back from the Cape for this.
No, you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well,
You
but
want me to
Joe,
talk
you
about it?
also did the busing piece. Joe, you,
No, free stuff.
We just have to make sure that Misty knows we're meeting on the 15th, like
Right away.
tonight or
Yeah.
first thing tomorrow morning.
Yeah, tell her right away.
and
Is it
Joe, you
15?
did the heavy
I'll tell her
lifting
right
with
now.
all of the transportation too, so.
But I mean, I might be of some use with the,
Meeting on the 29th.
No, I
Zoom
won't be on the
Zoom would be a good resource to find out what the upfront costs might be on some of this software would be Lori Schmidt. If you can set up a time to visit with Lori Schmidt and ask her that particular question in advance. How much of the package that you have to deliver all of, every month, every week, every freaking day to the state, all these software packages, if we have to buy them up front, any idea what they cost now?
There actually.
But she would
may be-
she would actually know which things. they
Kevin
were.
probably has a way of finding out.
No, I'm not sure.
But I know the state demands a lot,
So
and
we're,
rightly so, but
so we're planning the 15th. The usual 5:30.
and here, right?
Yeah,
It
Here,
doesn't
by
matter
phone,
where it is.
and
I could try to call in, I may not be.
That's okay.
Just, but Sarah, you can be here
I
for
can be
sure. I'll be here. I'll try to find my book. Which
Okay,
is what I said I was gonna do and I didn't, but
okay.
that's not unlike
So
me, Carol.
15th, 5:30.
I'll put a note. You know what? I'll make a note.
Yeah, that works.
That would work.
Okay, let's see.
Yep.
Your check out.
Who do I have here?
I'll set an alarm. Bring.
What
your
have I
book.
got for Sarah
Are we
Vogel?
definite on the
Okay, I
6th?
got a phone number for
I
Sarah.
think so, yeah. I think that's a good time too. That'll give you guys the Walpole subcommittee.
Karen, I got a phone number for Karen.
Because
Kevin,
November
I
1st
got
is not
a, I
that
got a
far
phone number
out.
for Kevin.
What's that?
November 1st is not really that far ahead of time. I mean, it's like 3 weeks later.
If
Shelley,
we
I got a phone
can get
number
what we
there.
need to get done on the 15th and the 29th.
So maybe one of you should be researching how to go ask for more time. Because I don't know what the process
I
is.
think,
But
You
you're
just
gonna
write a
need-
letter.
yeah, it sounds like you just.
Just
tell the
write a
school
letter.
board.
Okay,
Sounds like you just tell the school board.
Well, there has to be a thing that goes to the state and the state has to give.
Yeah, but I think it's
but
just a
yeah,
letter.
It's not a big deal, because I think with Charlestown, didn't we get more time?
Yes.
We got more time with Charlestown because we did the same thing over the summer where there were a lot of our meetings where we argued with each other as opposed to doing anything. And so,
I can't imagine that
Oh,
happening.
come on.
with,
It's like Thanksgiving dinner with a dysfunctional family.
yeah.
So just to confirm, Walpole subcommittee, September 15th at 5:30 here.
Yes,
And the full withdrawal committee, the next meeting will be October 6th at 5:30 here.
yes.
Yeah? Yeah,
And both of those are in the email to Misty.
that,
And both of those were in that email to Misty.
I think so. I just sent, you'll get it too, don't worry.
All right. Thanks.
Just correct it if it's wrong.
What happened to the 29th?
We're saving that in
Yeah.
case we need to meet again,
I'm
the
putting it-
subcommittee.
I'm
again.
putting it in, I put it in mine,
Yeah.
but
Good idea.
then Misty sends me another one that is the official one, so I hold the space.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can do the 29th, 6th, I'm not sure I can do that one.
So on the, what is it, 6th? So the only agenda item is gonna be
Is this
Make the big
to make the decision. I think most of that discussion will probably be about the Walpole report.
Right.
Probably, yes. That will drive it, but That'll be the agenda item.
Yep,
H09,
my name.
yeah,
Anything else?
No, it's 10:57.
oh, 10:57.
Yes.
Okay, that's probably why it keeps bouncing.
Okay. Want me to do my thing? Move to adjourn at 7:05 PM.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nancy?
I said
Okay, I'm just making sure you're not still talking to Joe.
Perhaps.
He's for Nan.
Right.
H010.